So, hi everyone, I'm Shraya. I'm a third year medical student, or just finished my third year at Barts in the London. I'm also joined by Bhavit and Theno, which could introduce themselves.
Hi, I'm Theno. I'm a second year medical student at Barts.
Hi, my name's Bhavit. I'm a third year medical student at Barts.
Yeah, so we're part of a widening participation society at SAMDA at Barts. So SAMDA stands for Student Assisted Medical and Dental Applications. And we're basically just a society that works with, well, currently before the pandemic, we were just working with schools from East London and trying to help all the year 12s and 13s get into medicine. And now we've branched out after the coronavirus pandemic, and we're actually doing it to all schools because we can basically live stream all our talks and so on. So yeah, well, today we're here to give a talk about how to prepare for medical school. So I think these are the wrong slides. I will just give you the right ones, I think.
Sorry, are they the incorrect slides?
Yeah, I'll just send you the right ones. Sorry about that.
All right.
And yeah, I think what we can do, I've just sent them slides, by the way. What we can do in the meantime is probably ask whoever is watching us, what sort of year group are you in? Have you already received an offer, or have you, are you still looking into applying to medical school? So what kind of stage are you at right now? So if you just want to put that into the chat, that would be great.
Can you guys see the chat as well?
Yeah.
Perfect. Yeah.
Okay, and applying this year. Okay, so I'm planning to start medicals. Okay, so we've got a mix of offer holders and people that are interested. So what I would say to the people that are interested is, and are going to apply this year, is have a look at this talk. Obviously, you don't need to look at every single resource that we mentioned and think you need to know this for your application, but you can sort of look at the things that we are going to cover and see what medical school will cover it for best to what your preferences are. And I think that would be a great way of taking this talk. For the offer holders, again, we're going to go through loads of resources, and we've got a feedback form at the end, actually, where you can get access to all the slides. So you'll have that as a permanent resource for you as well. So yeah, let's go through it. So in terms of making the most out of this workshop, we have about 30 to 45 minutes, and we'll be as quick as possible so that we can answer all your questions. And feel free to answer and ask any questions in the chat, and we'll get back to you on that. And we might be probably running this talk again in September, just before term starts and before year 12s turn into year 13s, and we'll want to apply. So yeah, we'll just go on to the next slide.
So in terms of the teaching styles university uses, there's a variety, and you need to realise that not all of these methods might suit your learning style. Some will work better than others, so it's just a variety for you to just see what works best for you. So with PBL, it's problem-based small group teaching, and it involves about 8 to 10 students working as a group, and you have a facilitator to guide you. How you can prepare for these sessions is actually by pre-reading the materials they provide you beforehand. So just gain a general understanding. If there are any terms you're not sure of, research them so that you can go into your session somewhat prepared and can actually contribute your ideas and participate in discussions. So when it comes to research aspect, make sure you use credible sources. Sources such as PubMed, BMJ Best Practice, Kumar and Clark textbooks, and of course your lecture materials. Do remember that Wikipedia shouldn't be the only source you use, but it can be used. Remember, it's also a safe environment for you to actually ask questions and improve upon your learning. When it comes to lectures, the majority of your content is going to be taught via lectures. It's wise to check if it's actually recorded beforehand so that you can rewatch for your own purposes. And what will really help to actually put the information into long-term memory is actually pre-reading those lecture slides, skimming through those slides. Again, look at any keywords, research anything you're not sure of, and indicate the slides that specifically you struggle to understand, so that when you do go to attend the lecture or rewatch if it's recorded, you can then tell yourself or indicate to yourself what slides you're supposed to be paying 100% attention to. Because I'm sure Shraya and Bhavit will agree that it's almost impossible to actually pay 100% attention to lectures, especially if there's more than like a couple of lectures a day. So by easing yourself in and out of the slides that you really need to pay attention to, you can maximize your learning. Your third exposure to the lecture contents and materials can ideally be within a week of the lecture itself, and then that can help to put the information into long-term memory and make your preparation for finals a lot more easier. Again, lectures might not work for everyone, so the key is to make sure you cover the content in some way or another, because that is what your exams are going to be focused mainly upon. So when it comes to clinical skills, it's mostly small group teaching that's volunteer based, and essentially it provides you a platform or an opportunity to practice clinical skills on each other and also be taught it. So how you can prepare is actually, again, pre-read any lecture materials, any booklets or guides that the university provides. You can also adventure on YouTube and find any clinical examination demonstrations that you can see. But examples of clinical examinations include taking blood pressures, examining your heart, the lungs, the abdomen, your arms, your legs, etc. And what you can really do is maximize the use of the session by actually volunteering to be a pretend patient or pretending to be a doctor and carrying out the examination itself. And in that way you can receive constructive feedback for your OSCEs examination that takes place at the end of the year. It can start year 1 onwards, or for some universities year 2 onwards. So on the next slide, it's about anatomy. Sorry, could we move on to the next slide, please? Has it come? Yeah, perfect, thank you. So with anatomy, it's taught in a variety of ways, again, depending on the university you go to. So you can have one option where you actually dissect the human body as part of a small group with a supervisor and work through the layers and discuss the anatomical structures and functions. There's other ways where they may already dissect the part for you, and that's called a prosection, and then you just come together as a group and discuss. So what happens is universities that tend to offer just the prosections would offer the opportunity to dissect as part of the student selected components, and Shraya will talk about that later on. But again, to prepare, you can use your lecture materials, any guides or materials the universities have provided beforehand. Again, just trying to get yourself ahead of the session, perhaps thinking of any questions you can ask the supervisors so that you can maximize your learning. We've mentioned some or recommended some sources such as Gray's Anatomy, Rohan's Anatomy, Nessa's Flashcards, teachmeanatomy.com and KenHub, which we found useful. There are plenty of resources out there, but these are just a few. With histology, I think most universities tend to cover it in the lectures, but some also provide captive programs that are basically online programs that you should carry out in your own time. So it's some independent learning there for you to do. And again, there are some recommended resources that we recommend. And when it comes to labs, it's a very great opportunity to consolidate your knowledge, but also have a fun time actually getting to know your cohort and also asking any questions you may have. Lab coats may be required, but please wait to hear back about that from the university. They may have specific criteria and you may be able to purchase them, but a lot cheaper than private companies. And just before I hand over to Shraya, all the resources and textbooks I've mentioned, please don't go buying them straight away. Best to wait till university starts, see what works for you. Talk to elder years so that they can give you the recommendations. They may also have online PDF versions that they can forward on to you for free. So please don't just go spending your money right away.
Okay, next slide. I'm just waiting for it to turn up on my thing. I think there was a slide before that about studying and revising. And there was one before. Yeah, perfect, thanks. So the main reason that you're there is to basically get a medical degree in the first place. So that all comes down to studying, revising for exams, so you can get that medical degree and become a doctor. So I've split it up, so studying to be different to revising. I think studying is the best way of making your materials before you actually get to your exam. So then all you have are your materials, your notes, and so on. So then you can move on and use those materials to revise for exams. And then that would be the best way to get the best marks. So with studying, it's a very much of an individual thing. I'm not here to tell you, and I'm sure Bhavit and Theno will agree, that one way is better than the other. I think the best way you can do it is just try every single thing out. And that also goes for graduates that are coming into their second degree now. You'll realize that medical school is very different to the first degree as well. But also you will find that things that have worked for you in the past will still continue to work for you. It doesn't have to be a case where you've come in and you're thinking, now I just have to completely change my whole revision or studying game. That's not the case. But I do encourage in the first few weeks and months to try out different things and see what works for you. But also don't force yourself to do something that your friend or someone else is doing if it's not going to work. So yeah, adapt and try, see what works for you. With medical school, I've definitely heard that there is that myth about it being super, super hard. It really isn't. I think what makes it hard is the high volume of information that you have to learn. But in theory, what you're actually learning, what the content of what you're learning is not hard at all. So don't feel that you're there learning super hard concepts. Everyone's going to have something that they find harder than the other. And you've got friends and you've got your tutors, and you can make this a collaborative time to actually learn from each other. So if you are one of those people that learn from group work and so on, still do it. Try it out and make a group with your friends and see what works best with you. Loads of different styles. So we've got some questions in the chat already about Anki and so on. So with making notes, some people prefer to do it by hand. Also in the lectures, they may do it by hand and they may write it out neatly after, as Theno said. Some people prefer questions, and that could come from flashcard apps like Anki, Quizlet, and so on. Anki is quite popular in medical school. I have to say I've used it before, and I'm pretty sure everyone, like a lot of other people have. But that's not to say that Anki is the be all and end all. There's loads of people out there that prefer not to use it as well. And you can also find pre-made Anki decks as well. So sometimes you might find that that you don't actually need to make anything. You can just download it and edit the Anki decks to what suits you, and then go with that. My tip with flashcard apps like Anki, Quizlet, and so on would be to not put everything into a flashcard deck. Only go for the specific sort of information that you find either hard or challenging, or is one of those things where you have to memorize and really can't understand. Also put posters up on the wall, do mind maps, all those sorts of things also work as well. And the main thing is about testing yourself and questioning. So I am quite an advocate for flashcard apps just because there's active recall and spaced repetition. And there's so many resources that go into active recall and spaced repetition as the best way to learn on YouTube and online. For your OSCEs and your clinical skills, Geeky Medics is probably one of the best resources that are out there. They have videos out there for you to learn from and have a look at, but please don't think that you need to copy exactly word for word and how they speak, how they act, because your examiners will know straight away that you've just rote learned it. And you've got university resources as well. And in terms of what sort of things to get for your OSCE and when practicing clinical skills, I recommend the stethoscope, BP cuff, and tendon hammer as basics for first and second year. With your stethoscope, I know an offer that normally comes out every year with the BMA. So don't tend to buy anything straight away. Like Theno said, don't buy anything straight away. Give it a few weeks, see what you actually need. Now, next slide. Next slide, please. Okay, so now you, can you just go back one for revising? Yeah, so now that you've actually studied the materials and you've made your notes or flashcards or however you want. You're going to use those materials to actually revise for your exams. Now, I would say from early on, try and find out what your university does in terms of exams. I can say as an example at Barts, we normally have one after every couple of modules. So it's about every 9 weeks that we'll have a ICA or in-course assessment just to see what knowledge that we have. I also know that King's and Manchester and so on have progress tests. So find out what the format of your exams are and exactly how it will work. Now, when it comes to first year and your preclinical years, anything that the university provides as an official resource can and will get tested. You can go and find other resources as well to aid your learning, but the actual core questions of your paper will come from your university resources that they provide. That includes lectures, any sort of programs that they've made available to you, any sort of anatomy booklets, clinical skill notes, anything like that. That's where anything that they formally teach you during the whole year can come up for your exams. Now, your lectures are your gold standard for preclinical exams. That's exactly where you're going to get the questions coming from. So know your lectures off by heart. Find out if your set texts from reading lists are used in exams. I again would recommend not to buy any of the books from your set reading lists when you are given them. A lot of the time people have bought it and haven't even really looked into the book. You can also find loads of these books in the library. Get them from the library, see what they're like. And then if you do feel like you're going to use it quite a lot, then you might want to consider investing into it. Past papers. So I know a lot of you are in year 12 and year 13 and are coming from A levels or IB, and there were loads of past papers available. Past papers are not a wide resource when it comes to university. You don't necessarily get given any. You might get the occasional few that are given by the university, but you won't really get the same level or the same amount of past papers that you were using for year 12 and year 13, which is why flashcard apps are probably one of your best resources to use to encourage your active recall and spaced repetition. Also speak to older years. They may have written down the questions from the previous years and used it as a resource. They may even have good resources on what's going to come up in your exams. And they are the best people. They've sat the exams. They'll know exactly what's going to come up or what most likely will come up. Question banks are good, but again, I would stress that that will be probably more useful in your clinical years, because in preclinical, anything that the university provides can and will come up in your exams. OSCEs, I can't stress this enough. It's all about practice, and start early. Don't start a few weeks before your exam. Start a few months before. Meet up once or twice a week with your friends. Take it in turns to be a volunteer examiner and person doing the exam, and that way you'll learn the best. And be ready and confident in time for your OSCEs. And see if any of your student societies are holding any mock OSCEs or mock exams that you can go to. And that would be, I think, one of the best things you can do just to get a feel of what it will be like. So next one. Yeah, so clinical placements, I'm not going to spend so much time on this because, again, in preclinical years, you won't be getting as much time on clinical placements. But the main things I just wanted to stress here is in your first year or your preclinical years, most of your experience will come from primary care or the community. You may have, some courses may have a bit more of a hospital or secondary care-based exposure, but just have a curious mind, ask as many questions as you want, providing that they're appropriate. And I'm pretty sure that no doctor will deny you. They will all answer your questions. It's a learning experience. And I think from first year onwards, if you ask these questions, you'll just grow in confidence and feel more comfortable asking these questions as you progress. Be comfortable when you're dressing. Guys, shirt and tie is just fine. You want to be bare below the elbow. Same with the ladies, no nail polish, hair tied up, no excessive jewelry. You can have like a wedding band or like simple stud earrings. That's something that's okay. No trainers. You might see people wearing trainers. You have to gauge that based on where you are, but hospitals have policies, so see what they have got to be said. So I'm going to pass it on to Bhavit now, who's going to talk about all about university life.
Yep, just waiting for the next slide. Okay, so there's a lot to university life, and it can be very different from being in sixth form. And the main difference you'll really realize is that there are loads of societies. And with this, there's loads of things that you can do in order to make the best out of university life. But first, we'll just talk about opportunities in and outside of medicine. So there's a lot that you can do within your medical degree, and you have loads of opportunities within the medical degree to go further into like medicine. One of the most obvious things is doing an intercalated degree, which normally means you can take a year out to do either a BSc, so a bachelor's or a master's, and some degrees might allow you to do an integrated PhD within these, but normally you would have to apply to these before you've applied to medicine, and it's normally like a coupled with that. So I know Cambridge do that for a fact, and that's like a 9-year course. But they're great opportunities to take a year out of medicine and do something that you really enjoy. And these will always like build points and things to have later on down the line when you're applying for foundation jobs or you're applying for training positions. It's always nice to have that extra degree, especially if you have the opportunity to do it. I think there's a massive shift in medicine to be more research focused and having loads of publications. And I don't think that necessarily to a lot as a first year, because I think try to get settled into like medical school and try and get used to things, and there'll be plenty of like opportunities to get into research and publications once you're into your clinical years and getting to know people like lecturers and who are carrying out this sort of research. But your main focus should always be getting on with your medical degree, and then if you have the extra time, then maybe look into research. One of the main ways to personalize like your own medical degree is through electives and your SSCs, which are student selected components. As often like the medical degree is like set by and governed by the GMC, so there's certain things that we have to cover within them, but we won't cover like all the niche specialities. So one of the main ways you can personalize things to like what you want to do is through like student selected components, and they can be quite easy to self-organize. The university will normally provide like a few options, but if you're then the university is normally more than happy to put you in touch with a clinician who would be willing to take you on and carry out the kind of like 2-week kind of placement in a certain area. And electives is something not to worry about if you're not currently in medical school. That's something you do in your final year of medical school, normally around the time you graduate, and you can often go abroad for this. So there's loads of opportunities there. And also within medicine, there's loads of scholarships and bursaries for things like research, and there's bursaries for that may need it financially. It's best to just look into stuff once you're there and just see what there is around. Many like companies might offer like grants and bursaries and stuff like that. Outside of medicine, there's loads and loads of opportunities for you to have as like a medical student. Like generally university sports teams are normally quite good, and if you normally play on quite a competitive level, university sports teams are really quite good for stepping up and making that next level. And same with like the music and arts, it's quite like a big, I know especially at Barts, there's like a big drama society, and the sports teams are quite good, and there's like a national league for the sports teams. And there's loads of opportunities to volunteer and give back to the community. So you can take part in things like SAMDA, which is for widening participation, helping people get back in. And we also have things like Teddy Bear Hospital, where we go into schools with 5, 6-year-olds and teach them about like basic health. But I think the most important thing to realize is medical school can be quite all-consuming, but there's more to life than medicine, and it's best to just keep your hobbies, whatever you have now, just make sure you keep them going. If you like doing art or if you like playing a certain sport, make sure you carry those on, because it can be really tempting to just consume your life in medicine. Yeah, so societies are kind of like clubs, but you can have societies about everything. And we always recommend that you attend Freshers Fair. It might be virtual, but try and attend it and try and sign up for everything. It's not signing up for something. Signing up to a society does not necessarily mean you're making a commitment towards them. It just means you've signed up for them to send you like a couple of emails a year telling you about their events. And you don't need to pay subs straight away for a society. Normally they'll ask you to pay subs once like you attend an event or there's an event that you really like to go to. So yeah, just try and talk to people and try and make friends. A great way to do this is normally through flats or halls if you're living together, or there's normally like a commuters network if you're commuting in and out from home. And if there isn't a commuters network, you can always ask the student union to set one up. And finally, there's also like of buddy schemes like mummies and daddies. So I know we have like quite a few. We have it at Barts, and it's taken across quite a lot of the universities. And it's just a great way to know older years and get those resources that you might need, like Shraya was talking about, and just getting their experience and their guidance. And finally, just explore the city you're in. You have at least 5 years, and it's a great opportunity to go and explore and really like have a look around, especially if you're new to the city or like me, you've lived in London your whole life, but whilst I've been at university, I've explored parts of London that I never thought I would really explore, and it's just been like really great to take those opportunities. And I'll hand it over to Theno.
Yeah, I'm just a bit
for useful resources.
conscious of time, so you may just quickly skim over this and actually answer some of the questions instead.
Sure.
So yeah, you can have a quick
I mean, yeah, so later on we'll put on the chat a feedback link, and if you provide us with some feedback, so you can have access to these lecture slides. But essentially, this is just some more useful resources that you can look around. So Clinical Medicine is a textbook by Professor Kumar and her colleague Michael Clark. It's very good to aid your lecture materials. You've got some YouTube channels such as Khan Academy, Armando, and Osmosis that can provide you with some further explanations. PubMed is a good database tool that provides online textbooks that is useful for any sort of research and PBLs that you might want to reference for. Geeky Medics, as Shraya mentioned, is very useful for your OSCEs, and Past Medicine is like a question bank of mock questions that you can do. But I think that's more useful later on in your year, so year 2 onwards perhaps, not necessarily first year. So next slide.
Yeah, so these are a few useful resources from the world of medicine. So you have firstly the BMJ, which is a really great useful, it stands for the British Medical Journal. And once you sign up, I think it's free to sign up to, and you get access to the BMJ best practice, which you normally get through your university. And you can also get a few things from I think they also have like a monthly subscription, so you can have access to their journals and stuff like that. one thing I would definitely recommend signing up to is an indemnity kind of society, an indemnity company. So you have two main companies here, the Medical Protection Society and the Medical Defense Union. They're both completely free to sign up to as medical students, and they'll cover you for any sort of like indemnity, although you shouldn't be put in any kind of position to like be liable for anything. But they will cover you, and if you ever get into any trouble, they're great for offering you any advice, and they'll also cover you for stuff like when you go for your elective abroad, and they're more than happy to help you out. And sometimes they offer like grants and bursaries for your elective. Another great thing to sign up to is the BMA. It's completely free for the first year, and then I think it's £30 from then on in. And you get access to stuff like the BMA library, loads and loads of journals. But the main thing I would sign up to for the BMA for is normally when they're at Freshers Fair, they have like a few good freebies. Like I think we got like a water bottle and like a bag, but they come out with like this offer for students to get stethoscopes, and it's normally on MediSave, and it's normally a Freshers code, and it means you get like a certain percentage off the Littmann Classic 3 stethoscopes, and you can also buy stuff like a case for it. What I personally did was I got the Freshers code and then waited till Black Friday, which meant I got an extra 10% off on my stethoscope, and then I also got a case for it. And as Shraya said earlier, using a stethoscope in medical school is really, really helpful. And there's a wide variety of stethoscopes available. Most doctors normally use a Littmann, but it depends on how much you can afford, and sometimes it's worth investing in certain things. And then
I was just going
generally some other stuff as a general student you should sign up to is uni days and student beans. They do tons and tons of student discounts online and in store.
Bhavit.
And they will do loads of.
Sorry, I was just going to say that it's probably best we start with some of the questions just because I'm conscious of time. And it may be best. So what we'll do is that we've got the rest of resources on the slide. If you could probably just have a look at the QR code. If you want the access to the slides, please fill in this feedback form, and please follow us on these socials. We will be running this talk again sometime in early September, where we don't have a time restriction, so we can go through all of this properly. And I'll also leave the feedback form in the chat for you. But yes, I think what we can do is actually start going through some questions instead. So what I'll do is just have a look through what's coming up. So first question was, are you going to record? So I believe this is getting recorded, but we will be running again on our own SAMDA YouTube channel. Do you have tips for completing online lectures compared to in-person lectures?
Online lectures are really great because you can watch them back and you can like rewind 10 seconds. And also if you're watching it again, there might be an option to speed up, and so that you cover everything in a shorter period of time. So
yeah, I think it's just a case of like just seeing what works best. And some people prefer going in and attending and asking any questions they have at the end. I think that's more useful if you prepare beforehand, whereas if you just want to take your time with things, then perhaps online lectures.
And yeah, I would actually pretty much echo what the guys have said. I would definitely say when it all goes back to normal and you are starting university and going into lectures, I know a lot of people do learn from lectures and actually being present at lectures, but it's also fine if your university offers recordings of the lectures and you feel like you do it best at home. I would definitely try out going to the lectures itself and seeing if that works. But if you just find that you're better at home just listening to the recording, that's perfectly okay. And don't force yourself to do something that doesn't work. Do you have any tips for making the most of clinical placements?
Basically try and do as much as you can without like tiring yourself out. It's what you offer to do and what you make out of it. Like as long as you try and put yourself out there and ask for things to do, there will always be something to do. And just stay for as long as it's useful to you. Nobody's expecting you to stay from 9 to 5. If you've got all the use out of it that you have in the morning, then it might not be worth going in the afternoon and instead going back home and doing some revising or going over what you've just seen.
Yeah. Any tips for memorization of the many materials? So try and understand the content. I feel you're going to have to revisit all this content every single year, and you will be doing it once you're practicing anyway. But having said that, active recall and spaced repetition is the best method. So have a look into that. There's loads of YouTube videos and things like that out there.
It's also important just to realize, like, it's impossible to learn every single thing. It's important just to get the general concepts and the understandings as well. And also in exams, not everything's going to be tested as well. They've got a certain number of questions to set. So it's understanding those key concepts and just memorizing those things if you're running out of time.
Yeah, it's often the things that they spend the most time on when they teach you being the things that will come up the most in exams. Do you use Anki? And if so, how do you organize them by exam or by topic? Well, that's really individual preference, really. Yeah, I use Anki. I prefer to use it for smaller things when it comes to maybe like genetics or drugs or something about pharmacology. That's when I tend to use it. Some people use it by speciality. Whatever works for you. So I would probably say try it out and have a look at some pre-made decks that are available online as well. Do you prefer digital notes or paper notes?
Completely up to you. So if you prefer handwriting, then it just helps to memorize things and understand things, then go with paper notes. And if you prefer digital notes because it might be less time consuming, then stick with digital notes. But as long as it's your own notes and it makes sense to you, then that's what counts.
Yeah, and I think an iPad, especially with the Apple Pencil, is a huge investment. See if paper works for you if you haven't already got one before buying something like an iPad. I like it for when it comes to anatomy and so on, and getting a picture from online and just annotating myself on an iPad. But I also use a laptop quite a lot as well. So it really depends. I also use pen and paper quite a lot. So see what works for you in the first few weeks. Don't make any hard and fast decisions. What tips would you give to make out the most of GP placements? So I think we covered quite a lot of it already in the previous question, or placements in general. Yeah, I would say make friends with all the allied health professionals as well. They have a lot to offer as well, whether that is like smoking cessation clinics, your healthcare assistants, your receptionists. They actually do know what you think, and they can offer quite a good insight in how what the patient service would be like as well. How do you think clinical placements will change because of the current situation?
So it's difficult to say because there's a lot of change going on and there's a lot of uncertainty. So I know for our university, they've said that we might be coming in a couple of days of the week, and then other days it will be virtual. So it's very much all up in the air. There might be a switch to a mixture of virtual placements and then also in-person placements, but it's very difficult to say.
Yeah, and I think eventually we'll go back to somewhat normality when it comes back to going into placements. So I think just make the best of what you're offered right now. But there's also loads of online platforms as well. May not be offering clinical teaching, but there'll be loads of online lecture platforms as well. So have a look at those. Is it recommended to intercalate?
I might jump in on this one, actually.
Yeah, go for
it. Because, I mean, it really depends on where you go. Because some universities, so I'm a medical student at the University of Nottingham, and there's no option for you to integrate because the degree is integrated with an undergraduate, with an undergraduate degree as well. So you automatically, everyone gets a BMed Sci, and that's done in 5 years. So you don't need to do that intercalation year. It really, as I say, depends on what your interests are. And obviously it depends on the university you apply to, because there's no point wanting to intercalate and then applying to a university where you can't intercalate. So although you do get a second degree at Nottingham, and there is an element of choice in what exactly you write your dissertation on, etc., you get a lot less choice than if you go somewhere where you have the option to intercalate in virtually anything. So yeah, that's my penny's worth.
Yeah, I have to agree with everything that's just been said by David. For the year 12s that are considering applying, that is also a factor to look into when it comes to applying. But yeah, also most places will let you intercalate, but definitely inquire about the policy. There's also policies about going to other universities by some universities itself. I know at Barts you have to actually be in the top certain percentage to be let out to a different university to intercalate instead of staying at Barts. But yeah, these are things to be to consider as well. What recommended pre-reading would you suggest? So I would probably say before starting medical school, don't do it. Just enjoy your time. I think Theno and Bhavit and even David would probably agree that enjoy your holiday. So it is a long time, and even your summer holiday as well. Don't spend all that time preparing. You have more than enough time actually in the academic term as well, and the academic year.
Yeah, and you get, I don't know about you, but my holidays are so long. Although the time that you are at university is, can be intense, and you've got a lot of stuff to learn, and you're very busy. You do get a lot of time off as well, time to rest and recuperate. I think that's something that maybe a lot of people don't realise, is that they just think medicine is going to be this like 9 to 5 slog every single day. You've got no spare time. You can't do anything you want, and it's not like that at all. It really is what you make it. I prefer to be busy actually, so I am involved in a lot of like extracurricular stuff, and that works for me. Actually, a point that you were making about going into lectures and staying at home, like actually I'm one of those people who just stays at home.
Same.
So this year is not, and also with the relation to in relation to the coronavirus pandemic, and how that's going to change the way a lot of people learn. Fortunately for me, it's not going to change things a lot at all, because I don't go in anyway. And I think that's just something that can reassure people, is that there are people already, regardless of COVID, who learn like that, and it is possible to learn like that. It may have a slight impact, because you may be one kind of learner over another. You might be the kind of person who has to go in and have someone talking to them, but you can do that. You can do that in front of your laptop screen, as we are all doing right now.
I think also the transformation from like A levels to university is eased in quite well. For example, at Barts we have our first module, Fundamentals of Medicine, so it essentially covers what you've learned in A-level biology, but in a bit more detail. So I wouldn't worry about preparing and trying to revise things before you start medical school. Just enjoy your life before.
Someone's just asked about the form. So yeah, fill in the feedback form. There will be a link at the end with the slides, but I've also just uploaded it too. And I'm starting medical school in September. How should I start preparing? Enjoy your time. You have a lot of time. They'll probably send you emails with reading lists and stuff. Probably just put that in an organized place so that at least you can have all that information for later on. But I would probably, right now would be the best time to look at those Facebook groups and the fresher events and all those sorts of things that will be coming up, and just start networking. Try and find people that are on your course as well and start meeting each other. I think that would be the best thing to do right now.
Yeah, I agree with that. I would just focus on like the social side of stuff for like university right now. Don't worry about like the medicine or the like academic side of stuff. Just make sure you try and find those Facebook groups. There's normally like offer holders or going into like this entry for this year. Join those Facebook groups, see what's happening, see what societies there already are, and what you have like your eye on for Freshers Fair to sign up to. Just
also like buddying schemes as well. So Barts do mummies and dads. they pair you up with elder years who essentially will be your Bart's parents, and you'll be their kid, and they're there to guide you throughout the whole course of your medical school. And that's how I met Bhavit and Shraya. So they're both my Bart's parents and I'm their Bart's kids. So they've been really useful, and they've provided me with all the resources and guidance throughout my first 2 years of medical school. So do reach out and network.
And I think we'll end the talk there because I am conscious of time, and I think we've covered all questions. Just the last thing, please fill in the feedback form. We will probably be running this talk again when it comes through just before term, so we won't have that time restriction. We'll go through as many questions as you want. And the best way to contact us is I've put the information there. Follow our YouTube channel because that's where we will be live streaming that talk again. So great.
Perfect. Thank you very much, guys.